Good evening and welcome to our February 24th Ogden City Council meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exceptions of Councilmember Wicks, who should be joining us shortly. We will turn the time to Vice Chair White for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please now join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is common consent. As our common consent agenda, there are 3 items on that agenda, and we're looking for a motion.
I will go ahead and make a motion to approve common consent items A and B, and item C to set the public hearing for March 17th, 2015.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Gochner, seconded by Councilmember Garner, to approve 8 items A and B and to set public hearing for March 17th on item C. And
Voice vote.
pardon? This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay. Next item is reports from the Planning Commission. Got Mr. Montgomery coming. Welcome, sir. On this one, we will have a presentation on both items 1 and 2 on this, and then we'll accept public input and do the motions. So,
Okay. Well, Mr. Chair and members of the council, what you have before you tonight is consideration regarding property that had normally been referred to as the stockyard and the exchange building that exists out there at 550 West Exchange Road. And as you mentioned, there are 2 parts. One is dealing with zoning ordinance amendments that deal with how you regulate land use. The other part is dealing with rezoning of the property so that if you do go ahead tonight and make amendments to the zoning ordinance, then this zoning would allow those actions to be implemented by the zone change. So let me talk first about the proposed ordinance changes. In our manufacturing zone, we have 3 chapters, and as this proposed use in the stock exchange area is manufacturing related, it was felt to be appropriate to make amendments to those manufacturing chapters so that the proposed new zones would be identified in that area. The first section, which is chapter 21 of the zoning ordinance, deals with what the zone is, what's its purpose, and then what are the appropriate land uses for this zone. And so as you look at that, we introduced 2 new zones in the ordinance. One is called the Business Exchange Historical, and the one is called the Business Exchange Industrial, BEH, BEI for short. The 2 zones then are identified as their purposes. One is to reflect the character around the stock exchange building, which is the BEH, the BE historical area. And we identified that in projects that would be developed around that area, they would keep in context the exchange building, its architecture, and the land uses that would be around it would be things that would be compatible and things that would not have outdoor storage and be in scale with the exchange building. The BEI zone then talks about its purpose is to be more of an industrial, but still keep the flavor of that overall site and be more specific and related uses that deal with the river, that deal with a clean industry, and that would help promote both job growth and the image along the river. those are the defined purposes. Then we go ahead in that same chapter and identify appropriate land uses. And we do make distinctions between land uses in the BEI and the BEH. In the BEH, we limit that there's no outdoor storage, whether it's finished product or whether it's beginning. Everything has to be inside. And the related uses then are cleaner uses. It even has some recreational uses as long as they're indoor. Almost reflecting back to, some of you may recall, when there used to be a skating rink out there. And those type of recreational uses that could also take place in that zone. The BEI zone does allow some outdoor storage of finished product, and it then allows some larger manufacturing type uses. And so the building scale is a little bit different. But that is what Chapter 21 revisions are all about, setting what are appropriate land uses and defining what the two zones are all about. The next change is in Chapter 22, and Chapter 22 is really the land use regulations in terms of dimensional requirements, such things as setbacks. It identifies the setback differences between the two zones, both front yard, side yard, and rear yard. It identifies building heights. In the historic BEH zone, 35 foot is the maximum height, trying to, again, keep scale of the building. The BEI, it's 50 feet. Impervious surface coverages are less in the BEH, again, trying to have more open space around it at 70%, where it's 80% in the BEI. And we also identify that even though there's a 50-foot height limit in the BEI zone, that's on a graduated setback distance. So once you get past 35 feet, your setback increases proportionally the taller your building gets from property line. Again, just trying to keep that more open fill, especially along the Weber River area. The third change is into Chapter 23. And Chapter 23 deals with special regulations that deal with all manufacturing uses. So, for example, if you refer to a land use in Chapter 21 and there's an asterisk, that asterisk would refer you to Chapter 23 where there's special regulations. Or in some cases, what we've done here too is with the two proposed zones, we actually create some architectural standards to again have more control to make sure we keep in context with the building, the historic building that is out there in the Exchange building. So in Chapter 23, you'll find some amendments that do such things as talk about if a restaurant's a permitted use, that it cannot be a drive-up restaurant in the BEH zone, and sets that limit. If it is storage that's allowed in the BEI zone, it says it cannot be between the building and the river. Again, trying to protect the open space character of the river and the building and not have storage between those two. It sets standards that you cannot have fencing between the property line and the Weber River area, again, to try to keep open feel. It also sets such things as the architectural standards, like I mentioned. It sets colors, exterior materials that would be allowed, and in the BEH zone, it even sets some architectural modules, if you will, that there's a rhythm to the building on the existing Exchange building of windows to pillars, and that module said it has to be repeated in the architectural designs of the other buildings in that BEH zone. So Chapter 23 sets some of those specific criteria then of what needs to take place when buildings are considered. Now, I know we talked about this in the work session, that some of these things are also covered in protective covenants, but for the city to be able to administer and follow through on projects that are developed there, we needed also something in an ordinance and not just protective covenants, which are between the developer and the tenants in the park, but we wanted also to make sure we had ordinance behind that so we could make sure we enforced that in the review process and during the life of the buildings in that area. So that is the first part of your action tonight. The Planning Commission recommended unanimously to approve these changes to these three chapters of the zoning ordinance. They had made a comment of a couple modifications to the language that they looked at. The ordinance you have before you tonight has those modifications in it. And so their recommendation to you on this aspect is to approve these text amendment changes. That then leads into the other part of your consideration tonight, and that deals with the rezoning of the property if you approve the text amendments. So without rezoning the property, those text amendments would not do anything because you need to have a zone in place on the property to then have those ordinance changes being able to be implemented. The proposed zone changes are to rezone the property which is presently zoned manufacturing M2 to the 3 zones you see here. First is the BEH. This is where the Stock Exchange building is located. And so there's proposed interloop road, and that road will be the boundary between the Business Exchange Historical and then the other Business Exchange Industrial Zone. So that road will become that definition. So everything within that loop, between Exchange Road and that loop, is BEH. Outside of that loop area, up until an area that is defined by the old rail yard track that service the loading chutes that are located along this area, and you'll still see those cement remnants there. That line then becomes the BEI zone. There's other property which will not be part of the industrial park, but which also presently is zoned M2, and the proposal is that that be rezoned to O1 open space. This is kind of the lower floodplain area along the Weber River. It's natural setting, and rather than have it zoned manufacturing, we're suggesting it be rezoned open space to reflect what we really want to have happen to that. And this will be city-owned property that will be zoned O1. We also extend that O1 down along the east edge along the Weber River, where we presently have a trail easement, but that area was also zoned M2. Now, there's other O1 zoning further to the south, but because that's not part of what we're looking at, we didn't show all the existing zoning. We're just showing what is being proposed to be changed tonight with this action. The Planning Commission also is recommending approval of this rezoning, as you see in the drawing. And those are the 2 considerations you're making tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Montgomery?
Explain the public access to these zones that we're considering.
Well, you can pick up a little bit on this drawing that in the subdivision of the property, there are proposed common open areas that will have public access easements that allow the public to go from Exchange Road through these areas to get to the open space. So you have one public access area located here, one public access area located here, and of course you have the present Weber River Trail, the bridge crossing the Weber River at this point, and there'll be that trail connection that goes here, and then the trail connection that also runs along this back area which has a public access easement. So now you've got, besides the existing access that occurs here, you have access now along the north edge, and then 2 other areas that can get you to those open spaces.
Is that a paved area then?
They will have paved surfaces to them, yes. So that space varies somewhere between 70 to 120 feet in width, and there'll be a trail of 10 to 12 feet in width that goes through those corridors. Again, have that public access easement on them. Now, that's part of the subdivision approval, which has already been granted, the preliminary approval.
Thank you.
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
And the buildings will be equally attractive on all sides?
Yes, that's one of the requirements, is that you have the architectural design on all 4 sides, because, as you note, the public access is going to be on all 4 sides.
And there'll be neutral earth tone colors?
Right.
Question concerning the BEH zone. The Exchange building does not take up that whole space.
Correct.
Is there other areas that will allow building in that
Yes.
zone?
All these areas here are potential building lots.
And what is the restriction for what gets built there?
So those restrictions are, height being 35-foot limit to try to keep in scale. The Stock Exchange Building, limited total square footage of 16,000 square feet. Architectural details is you need to have a brick veneer or a precast veneer that modulates what is on the Exchange Building. No outdoor storage, mainly clean type businesses that everything is inside the building. And that's also that area where I said there's even potential of indoor recreation could happen as uses in that section also.
Okay. And the public access that crosses the BEI zone, I assume they will also be paved and
Correct.
and placarded, and they stay in place in perpetuity. And
There's a memorandum of agreement that took place between the city, the State Historic Society, Utah Heritage Foundation, because of impacts as development was occurring. We had to enter into this agreement and do an analysis, documentation of all historic features of the property. And in that memorandum, it talks about that in these corridors, being able to preserve or interpret the entire stockyard area. And so those are things that we need to implement because of that memorandum that goes with the development.
any other questions?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment. I just wanted to thank everybody involved with this because I think it's been a really great collaboration and certainly celebrates the historic aspect and the open space and opportunities for new buildings. So I'm just excited for
Yeah.
what you've created. So thank you to everybody.
Pat goes to Brandon Cooper for
He's right back
his
there.
perseverance there.
Smile on his face, too.
And you'll be seeing other items come to you. The landmarks will be considering this week nominating the Stock Exchange Building to the local register, and they'll be coming to you for your approval of that.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, we'll receive public input on both of these items. If you have anything you'd like to add to give some information for the council, please come forward now. Seeing no movement, we need to do both of these separately, so looking for two separate motions.
I'll go ahead and start and make a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2015-4.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Gochner, seconded by Vice Chair White, on 2015-4, and this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Gardner? Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye, that passes unanimously. And concerning 2015-5.
I will make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2015-5.
Second it.
I have a motion by Councilmember Garner, seconded by Councilmember Stevens, to adopt ordinance 2015-5. This is a roll call vote also.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye. That also passes unanimously. We're looking forward to great things. I'd like to also add my congratulations to get to this point, and we're just happy that all this collaboration has taken place. Appreciate all your good work, Brandon, and those who have worked with you. Looking forward to some a really neat project out there.
Okay. And Brandon, keep up the good work. This has been needed for a long time in that area. And I was also excited to see the article with your collaboration with Weber State and preserving that historical factor. That was pretty impressive. Thank you.
All right, next item on our agenda is new business concerning fiscal year 2016 financial principles. We'll hear from Ms. Eller-Smith.
Chair Heyer, council members. Tonight before you have the FY 2016 financial principles. This is a a joint resolution with the mayor. We adopt these financial principles to establish the policy regarding the management of city funds and also to direct the budget adoption process. In prior years, we have adopted them with the budget, and we realized a couple of years ago that it made more sense if it was policy that was to direct the budget process, that it made sense to do it ahead of the budget process. These financial principles were originally adopted in 1995. They've been amended 6 times since then. Before you are just 2 minor changes that came at the recommendation of our finance manager. The first one is in paragraph 9, just changing the term financial audit to the budget process. And the second one comes under reserve policies in the general fund, and it just changes one word from will to may, that we establish a general fund contingency reserve fund on an annual basis. So those are the only changes that we have. We would just recommend that you adopt these financial principles. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you.
Yes, can I just ask you one quick question? So the change from will to may, is that a policy direction change, or is that just a tweak change?
Well, I think as a practice, we do that. I think it's just that we didn't want to, in case we didn't have any money to do it. I think that the finance manager didn't want to be bound by doing it if we didn't have money to do it. But I think as a policy, I think as a practice, they try to establish reserve funds whenever they can.
Thank you. All right.
With that, I'll make a motion that we adopt proposed joint resolution 2015-10.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Garner, seconded by Councilmember Blair, to adopt Resolution 2015-10. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye. That passes. Next item is public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding your concerns or ideas. Please state your name and address clearly for the record, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Councilman Heyer, council cousin. I have a cousin over there. My name is Kim Dixon. My address is 1590 South, 2350 West, West Haven. I wanted to come here tonight and talk to you about a project that I hope to sponsor to honor the servicemen and women, the veterans of World War II in Weber County and Ogden City. I call it VE plus 70, honoring Weber County's greatest generation. A year ago, I was looking through old editions of the Standard Examiner and discovered that I could look through every single edition and identify the names and addresses of those who had served from Weber County, and an idea was born. I have spent the last year and a half going through December 1941 through September 1945 editions of the Standard Examiner, getting the names, addresses, and even the stories of those veterans who've served. And those veterans' stories are really amazing. In fact, we had an Ogden boy on the Arizona the first day of Pearl Harbor, and he was killed. So the idea that I have is to, on May 8th, 2015, I would like to put a flag at every home address of the 6,000 veterans in Weber County. I know this sounds crazy. My husband has heard about it for a year, and he still can't quite believe it. But we are looking for volunteers. On Friday, there will be an article in the newspaper about it. I've been speaking with Lynn Arvey. The way that it will work is May 8th, the week of May 1st, volunteers will contact the homeowners of the addresses of the homes or businesses where a veteran lived and present them with the information, give them the opportunity to opt out if they choose not to have a flag in their yard. If all goes well, on Friday, May 8th, there will be a flag put up by 8 a.m. and taken down by 8 p.m. That means there will be over 5,000 flags flying in Ogden City and Weber County. The stories that I have been reading about and learning are just so inspiring. And I think for a lot of Weber County and Ogden City people, it's just a date in the book. They don't understand the tradition of patriotism, service, courage that our boys and women, men and women, served. And so I want to make it a visual effect for them. I need lots of volunteers. I'm looking for scout groups. I'm looking for church groups. I'm looking for just neighborhood groups who would like to know who on their street was a veteran and help out. As I said, there will be an article in Friday's newspaper, and I just wanted to alert you before that came out so you would have an idea of what was going on. Thank you. Any questions? You're a lot scarier than I thought you would be. Any questions that I can answer for you? I think it's going to be a one-of-a-kind celebration. If we can pull it off, it is going to be absolutely inspiring.
Who is providing the flags for you?
The volunteers will provide the flags. That's why we're hoping for scout groups. You know, and it's very, can I continue? It's very interesting because it defines what Ogden City was and the county during the 1940s. And so it's a very compact space, and I think that we have plenty of people, scout groups, et cetera, that could honor the veterans.
Are you asking for the volunteers in that newspaper article also?
Yes.
Okay.
There is also, I have a website, it's wcgreatestgeneration.com, and you can find some of the stories there. They're so inspiring. The other, I have a Facebook page, Weber County Greatest Generation. If you would like to like that, that will be giving out some information. And also, you can reach me at wcgreatestgeneration@gmail.com. But I would just like to educate you and invite your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Comments from our mayor?
Sure, Ms. Dixon, I appreciate what you're doing. Movements like this get started with a passionate champion and a volunteer, and I know that takes a lot of time and energy, so I'd like to applaud you for getting involved and getting something started like this. Then I would like to personally or publicly thank a handful of people. As you all know, we have 2 weeks and 1 day, as was pointed out earlier today, left in the legislative session. It's been extremely busy. We're actively tracking 159 bills down there. But I really want to call out Mark Johnson, Greg Buxton, Gary Williams, and Mark Stratford, plus all of our department directors. They've been down there almost every day, and it's been a really dynamic year this far. And as Jerry Sloan used to always lament, sometimes the inmates are running the asylum, and during the legislative process, that certainly seems to be the case with some of the things that they play defense for and chase. And I just wanted to publicly thank all of you all that have spent so much time and energy down there. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, any comments? Okay. We do have on our agenda next is a closed executive session, and we will ask our legal counsel, Mark Stratford, for advice.
Fair hire, a closed executive session is appropriate for the purposes described in the agenda.
Okay, and do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn into a closed executive session.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Garner, seconded by Vice Chair White, to move into a closed executive session. And this is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens? Councilmember Wicks?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Garner?
Aye.
Councilmember Gochner?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Heyer?
Aye. All right, that passes. We will adjourn from the other room at the conclusion of that closed executive session, and there will be a city council work session held immediately following. And the items for that work session are on the agenda.